Boxing Day had always been a lively occasion in our household, more of a tradition than an afterthought to Christmas. It was when the family got together in the backyard for food, drinks, laughter, and, of course, the annual post-Christmas game day. My name is Rachel, and for the last 3 years, I had hosted the family Boxing Day cookout along with my boyfriend, Chris. Every year, someone would bring something unexpected to shake things up. Last year, it was karaoke. This year, it was his uncle. Uncle Mike was the kind of man who filled up a room the second he walked in. Tall, with an unmistakable baritone voice and a mischievous gleam in his eye, he could make you laugh or groan with his relentless teasing. He had flown in from Texas, and his arrival was the talk of the day. I'd only met him once before, briefly, at a family reunion, but he seemed to remember everything about me. "Still working from home, Rachel?" he asked with a grin while flipping a burger. "Still surviving Zoom calls and frozen screens," I joked back. As the evening wore on, the family drifted from the food table to the makeshift sports area we'd set up. Chris, Mike, and the others were tossing around a football, challenging each other to friendly games of darts and cornhole. I wasn't planning on playing anything more strenuous than a card game, but that changed quickly. "You play?" Uncle Mike asked, tossing a bean bag up and down in his hand. "Cornhole?" "Occasionally." "Why?" "Because I've got a feeling you'd lose to me." "Badly," he said, giving me that signature teasing smirk. I raised an eyebrow. "Wanna bet?" That's how it started. A simple joke turned into a competitive fire I didn't know I still had. Chris watched us with that mix of amusement and concern. He knew how stubborn I could get. "What are we betting?" Mike asked, narrowing his eyes. I smirked. "You tell me. If I win, you help me organize my storage shed while I'm here." "That thing's been a mess since '98, he laughed.
"Fine."
"If I win, you cook dinner for everyone tomorrow night."
"Deal."
Everyone gathered to watch us. The match was close, closer than I'd expected. Turns out Mike was good. Really good. Every time I landed a shot, he answered with 2. The final score was neck and neck, but he edged me out by a single point. A single, infuriating point. I groaned and shook his hand.
"Fine."
"I lost." "Darn right you did," he said, laughing. "And you're gonna regret ever stepping into that shed." The next morning, true to my word, I drove over to Chris's parents' place, where Mike was staying. He was already waiting outside, sipping coffee and looking far too pleased with himself. I pulled into the driveway, stepped out, and gave him a mock glare. "Let's get this over with," I sighed. The shed was in the backyard, tucked behind the house, and hadn't been touched in years. It was more like a time capsule than a storage space. Dusty boxes, old tools, and random furniture filled every inch of the place. I immediately understood why he hadn't done it himself.
"Wow."
"You weren't kidding," I said, coughing through the dust. "I never joke about sheds," he said, chuckling. We got to work. At first, it was awkward. We barely knew each other beyond the family gatherings and occasional chats. But as we dug through old boxes, something changed. We started joking, sharing stories, and laughing about the ridiculous things we found, like an old lava lamp from the '70s, mismatched golf clubs, and a VHS collection of movies I hadn't seen since I was a kid. "Why do you even have this?" I asked, holding up a velvet painting of a howling wolf. "Because I had terrible taste in the '80s, he admitted. By the third hour, we'd clear half the shed. I was sweating, sore, and oddly enjoying myself. Mike was surprisingly easy to talk to. He had lived a wild life, traveling, working on oil rigs, running a small diner at one point. His stories had me cracking up, especially the one where he accidentally locked himself inside a restaurant freezer and had to be rescued by a teenage employee. At one point, I sat down on an old camping chair to catch my breath, wiping my forehead. "You're not too bad at this, Rachel," he said, handing me a water bottle. "You're not too bad at losing bets," I shot back. He laughed. Fair enough. That moment was weirdly peaceful. The winter sun peeked through the clouds, casting light into the shed. It felt like we were in our own little world, just 2 people talking, sharing stories, and laughing about life. Then he pulled out a photo album and opened it up. "Want to see something hilarious?" he asked. Inside were pictures from decades ago. Young Mike in bell-bottoms, shirtless fishing trips, group photos of old family holidays. We found one of a young Chris, probably around 10, dressed in a ridiculous Halloween costume. I couldn't stop laughing. "Oh, I'm definitely showing this to him," I said, snapping a picture. "I'll deny everything," Mike grinned. The day turned into evening before we knew it. The shed was finally organized, and the trash pile was taller than me. We sat on the steps outside, sipping coffee and watching the sunset. There was a strange comfort in that moment. I felt like I had made a real friend, someone who knew how to tease me but also how to listen. "Thanks for helping," he said finally. "I owed you," I replied. "But honestly, I don't regret it. It was kind of fun." He smiled. "You know, most people wouldn't say that after hauling boxes for 6 hours." "I'm not most people," I said with a shrug. That night, when I got back home, Chris was waiting with a grin. "How bad was it?" he asked. "Surprisingly, not bad at all," I said, kicking off my shoes. "Your uncle is actually kind of cool." Over the next few days, Mike and I had a few more moments like that, watching football with the family, debating which movie to watch, and even teaming up for a board game night. He was sharp, funny, and unexpectedly thoughtful. By New Year's Eve, he was getting ready to fly back to Texas. We all gathered for one last dinner, and Mike raised a toast. "To family," he said. "And to losing bets that turn out better than winning." Everyone laughed, but I knew exactly what he meant. After he left, Chris and I talked about maybe visiting him in Texas that summer. I felt like I'd gained more than just a cleaned-out shed that week. I had a new perspective, a sense of unexpected connection, and a genuine friendship I never saw coming. Sometimes you lose a bet and dread the outcome. But every once in a while, that loss leads to something unexpectedly great. And for me, losing to Mike on Boxing Day ended up being the best way to pay off a bet, not with effort but with connection. And next year? Let's just say I'll think twice before challenging him again.